It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Oh, let's review.
We'll analyze the scene.
Sounds holly jolly to me.
Before it's over, let's begin.
Bum.
Bum.
That's right, folks. Since the Christmas season is upon us, we thought the way to celebrate and get into the holiday spirit would be with some holiday reviews.
6 to be exact. Selected and arranged for your Yuletide pleasure.
So, silver up those bells, light the multicolored lights, and go out and build a snowman as we engage in some
Seasonal
seasonal shenanigans.
shenanigans.
And oh my god, everybody, it is the most wholesome and iconic literal product placement of a movie ever. It's Miracle on 34th Street. You like Macy's, kids?
Woohoo!
I'm just kidding on the Macy's thing. It's just kind of weird. It just kind of struck me just how much this movie is like, oh, geez, like, yeah, Macy's is very much being propped up in this movie. All right, so I kind of teased this at the end of the debate, I believe I teased it. No, at the end, maybe the end of last night, too, where I have actually never seen this. I've seen the Mara Wilson version with Richard Attenborough as Santa. And of course, I feel like me as a 90s kid who's obsessed with Jurassic Park. I mean, you know, come on, John Hammond is Santa Claus. I got to admit, I've always been a little bit hesitant to get to Miracle on 34th Street because I do think there's some, like, you guys know me. It's one of the things, like, I'm not going to make it a sticking point in this conversation at all. But there is a little bit of an element of kind of like outdated mental health analysis that's just like inherent to this story. That makes me a little bit on the ishy side. Like I said, I'm going to try to kind of keep that on the door when it comes to this film, but it's just kind of like inherent to the overall story. Like, oh, he's crazy, you know, like, I don't know. It's just kind of
Tiki,
like,
they call that out though in the movie. So what's the
no,
problem?
I realize that. It's just, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying it's kind of like one of those things where if they do it wrong, it can be kind of like an insensitive thing. This movie does not do it wrong, though, at all. I really do like this movie a lot. I don't know if I would like put this on the same level as some of the other like big all timers, like, you know, like It's a Wonderful Lives of the world. But it's certainly very, very good. It's certainly got the iconic Christmas spirit. Really interesting messaging. I am honestly the biggest thing I want to kind of dissect with this movie is the corporate angle, because I forgot just how much of a factor the actual department stores play in this film. So yeah, what do y'all think of this?
Dragon.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is. Well, Jay, I'm just going to take everything you want to say. Do you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, this is one of the most definitive. Honestly, this is one of the definitive Christmas classics for sure, and I think it's very well warranted. It's very well earned. You know, it really gets to the heart of what Santa Claus is all about. I think the writing is very clever. You know, in the situation that we put our Santa Claus into. I mean, looking back on this thing, it's been forever since I watched it because, you know, I'm swept up in all the other Christmas movies. It's one of those movies you don't need to go back to, in a sense, because again, it's kind of permeated the walls of cinema history, one could say. This movie is a movie both Charlie Brown and Saul Goodman would both love, and I'm enamored by that. Looking back on it, this is like for the most pure and the most cynical of audience, this thing would do wonders. You know, it's combating the commercialism of Christmas with goodwill, which is very on the Charlie Brown side of things, and it's a court case that's grounded and requires very clever tactics to win, very much on the Saul Goodman side of things. So it's quite delightful in that regard. And I mean, I don't know, man. I tell you, looking back on this thing, I think I like better than It's a Wonderful Life. Not against It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life is like that's a commitment. This is like, oh man, this is just the right thing to put you in the holiday spirit and just kind of like hits all the marks and it's in glorious black and white unless you watch that colored version, I suppose.
All right, Jacob.
All right. I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Tiki, except for the fact that I never even watched the Richard Attenborough one.
Yeah, Dragon, you got to realize, like, I'm not saying that as a slight against this movie. It's just like I did grow up with It's a Wonderful Life and Muppet Christmas Carol and stuff like that. So, really, me saying it's not in that level is just the only factor there is just the fact that I didn't grow up with it. So, all right, go ahead, Jacob.
I guess I've never seen this movie before either. In fact, I finished watching it just before we came on tonight. I had to say, I really enjoyed this movie. It's like it is sentimental without getting too overly sappy about it. It's like it's basically a holiday comedy courtroom drama, and kind of except for the remix, there's kind of like a movie, kind of unlike any other that I've ever seen. Like, haven't seen a movie quite like this. And, like, it's funny, it's charming, it's heartwarming in all those ways that like these classic 1940 movies were. As Dragon said, it's like a good way to get into the Christmas spirit. Like, it doesn't outright like condemn commercialism like it doesn't like beat you over the head with it, but it does condemn it like it's being lost in the shuffle. But it does like promote like goodwill toward men and everything, and was even in many ways progressive for its time. So I must say, I'm kind of a fan.
All right, we got a good comment from Junebug Films here. They say it's a great movie. It makes me still hope that maybe the world could be that magical again. Can only hope. We can only hope. Dragon, I assume you've got some interesting background on this.
As a matter of fact, I do. Yes.
Go ahead.
So yeah, so apparently the inspiration for this film was rather unique. So Valentine Davis, I believe Valentine Davis or Davies, he was in a department store Christmas shopping, and he was just kind of struck by just the the commercialism of even back then, in the 40s, where it was just like overwhelmingly like basically the way.
It's so trippy. It's like they had no idea. They had no idea what was coming.
Yeah, I mean, he was shopping on like Christmas Eve for like a last minute gift.
Right,
This is
right.
like basically he was like kind of the precursor. He was like the age old kind of 40s esque version of Jingle All the Way, if you will. But yeah, he was just kind of struck by the commercialism even back then, and just thought to himself like, man, I wonder what Santa Claus would think of this. And there you go, movie. So he wrote this, and he told his director buddy about it, and basically kind of spun from there, turned to a script, and Fox optioned it initially as kind of like a B movie, kind of like a place, kind of like a seat filler movie for the schedule, one could say, in terms of like, okay, well, we need to put some movies out, just kind of get the brand out there. So yeah, let's do a Christmas movie, let's put it out there.
The most surprising thing about it is the movie's actual release date.
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
But yes, you're right.
I was leading into it, Dragon.
Yeah. Well, all right. So, interestingly, Tiki spoke of the department stores and how very in your face they are. With Macy's. So Macy's and Gimbels. Unfortunately, Gimbels no longer around, which really bums me out, especially when I watch Elf this time of year.
Yeah, I know. It's weird to watch Elf and see like even back, like not even 20 years ago, how big they were and that they're not even around anymore.
Yeah. So Macy and Gimbels, they would not sign off on the use of their brands until they saw the finished film. So they did something that's unheard of now. They would never do this today. And we've heard stories of this in the past with similar issues. Like, for example, Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters, they did not clear the name, so they had to shoot two versions of pretty much every scene for a while before throwing caution to the wind. Just say, you know what, screw it. We're gonna share the screen with the gorilla with the net.
Uh-huh.
So something along those lines, where they shot instead though they shot the full movie with Macy's and Gimbels, and just prayed to God that the representatives of Macy's and Gimbels would like it, and thank goodness they loved it. It was a huge risk because if they did not love it, they have to go back and they have to reshoot and re-edit and recobble together things. So they have to. So think about it, it's the whole Macy's Day Parade.
Oh God, right?
Yeah. Plus, they shot in the actual stores too, at least well, it's the actual Macy's store, with the
Yeah, that
exception
would
of
have been just a logistic headache to try and go back. Like, could you imagine, like, even, I mean, nowadays it would still be a headache, but nowadays we have like stuff where we can just like Photoshop that shit out.
yeah. So yeah, and yeah, so interestingly, this thing, as Jacob was alluding to, the studio wanted to release this puppy in the summer, because in the '40s people did not go to the movies as much on Christmas as they do now. Christmas was not a seasonal draw as it is now for like the movie holiday. Like, what are people going to do? Let's go to the movies. Celebrate this grand old Christmas season. They're thinking the summer blockbuster mindset. So this led to the idea of okay, so how the heck are we going to market this? Are we going to market a very non-appropriate seasonal film here of like, hey, this summer Christmas. This is before
I mean,
Christmas
this
in
is
July.
back before Christmas
Yeah,
Christmas in July was a thing, of course.
exactly. This is far before that, so it was very unheard of. So what they did was rather ingenious. They kind of took a slight page from the Book of Hitchcock. Essentially, what they did was they did not mention Christmas at all in the advertising, so that's why it's called Miracle on 34th Street. There are a lot of working titles on this. Did not really. There's like the whole litany of things. So anyways, the point is like you won't believe the miracle that happened on 34th Street and all that sort of stuff. And what they did is like
clever girl.
now you remember in the Psycho trailers how Hitchcock just walked around the Bates Motel
Oh, of
and
course, yeah.
he kind of hyped up stuff. That's essentially what they did here, where it's literally broke the fourth wall, where it's like they're putting together a trailer and showing it to a studio executive. Says, stop! You can't say it's amazing, it's dazzling. You guys got to tell me what this movie is in one word. So it was literally the meta thing of like the studio executives talking about the movie, and that was the trailer.
Oh my God, that's great.
Insane and wonderful.
Miraculous.
One could say, yes. So this movie came out. It did so ridiculously well. Back in the day, they did not. Movies only last about 2 weeks, roughly, depending on how well they did. And this thing ran for half a year. Basically lasted until Christmas of that year because people kept seeing it. It did so well.
Uh-huh.
So it went from like a B movie off to the side to being like one of the premier movies. Not just one of the premier movies, nominated for 4 Oscars.
And one could call it maybe the Casablanca of Christmas films.
I would say so, yes. And not only that, not only did it get nominated for 4 things, it won 3 of the 4. Didn't get Best Picture. Got supporting for Santa Claus himself, which I still argue he was the lead of that film, so that always bugged me. But regardless, got screenplay and original story. So again, it was kind of before we reconfigured the Oscars with the whole screenplay kind of adapted and all sorts of that stuff. So yeah, of course, speaking of adapted, you got a number of adaptations and remakes. Of course, a lot of TV adaptations, and of course the very popular but not as financially successful Miracle 34th Street in '94 with the great Tiki.
Yep.
And yeah, of course, they've never been as successful as the original. And then, of course, at a certain point in time, they tried colorizing this classic and did not go over well, like at all.
How did it not go over well, Dragon?
Well, I mean, it's like the whole national. I forget if it was National Film Registry that got on the. I heard about George Lucas making a fuss about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's one of the things that George Lucas kind of like went to the registry over.
Yes, that's the thing. Basically, the film aficionados and the critics and such, and I guess the diehard film fans, or at least the very least fans of the original, were like, "Oh, we're so used to in black and white. Why colorize? There's something kind of phony about this." So colorization was kind of like frowned upon, or at the very least controversial.
Like, do you know what the funny thing is about that? Like, I kind of have the same issue with something else about being colorized, but in this case, it's the Three Stooges. I could never stand watching them in color for some reason.
I can see that. I can totally see
that.
Yeah,
it's just it's not right. Yeah, there's something off of that. Plus, there's like, what's wrong with rich black and white? Why do we got to dumb things down for these kids? Why do we got to remake Psycho in color? That's what I'm talking about, man. We don't need to do any of that.
Like, but yeah, that's my black and white.
The
Like,
less
in
said
what?
about that Psycho remake, the better.
Anywho, yeah. So yeah, that's all she wrote in the background. At least all the kind of the pertinent stuff. You got a few little nuggets as we go on, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I honestly have not watched the Mara Wilson version of this movie since I was a kid, but I really do think that that movie tried to play the whole like is he or is he not crazy thing more like as like a serious, musing on mental health. And I honestly think that's why the premise of this movie is always kind of like got a bad taste in my mouth. Because honestly, I'm not a big fan, just in general, of how the '90s portrayed mental illnesses. Just kind of like blanket statement there. And I think the Mara Wilson version, if I remember correctly, it really got kind of heavy handed on like, well, so what if he's mentally disturbed? I don't know, like it was basically kind of making the case of like, yeah, the man might be crazy, but so what? He's still spreading the good word, unless what this movie does, which is more kind of like that ambiguous but still very very wholesome kind of resolution that we get. So by all means, Dragon, I watching the actual movie, all those kind of negative sort of medical connotations sort of flushed away for me because I got to tell you, like everything, they really do a way more pointed job at pointing out just how stupid and ridiculous the guy prosecuting the Santa is.
Well, remember the prosecutor is not. Remember the prosecutor's doing his job. I think you mean like the psychiatrist, so that guy.
No, that guy. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think the
Exactly.
prosecutor is hilarious, and he's like just he doesn't want to do this case anymore than anyone else does.
No, but yeah, you're right. The therapist.
Sawyer's the bad guy of the movie, unequivocally. Sawyer is just like this prick who has like an unhappy home life and he just wants to feel important. And here's the thing, the best comparison I have for Sawyer is he's like a sleazy mechanic. It's like his job is to find something wrong with people. He's like bargained in psychology. It's like, oh, of course, something there. If you walk into a psychologist, clearly something must be wrong with you. And here's I've looked into the DSM-5, and here's like a litany of things that are wrong with you. When they may not even be a problem, especially for the 40s. Like anything wrong with you, oh God, there's a name for this thing. We're terrified.
Yes, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I was a little nervous to go back to this thing because I was like, oh God, like, the 90s version, if I remember correctly, it's not very flattering as far as the depictions of like potential mental health goes. 40s, I honestly think because the 40s we had like way less of a grasp on mental health in general, I feel like it kind of almost benefits this movie because they're trying way less hard to fit whatever condition that he may or may not have into any sort of a box. Does that make sense?
Well, sure, but again, it's less about finding out what's wrong with him. It's just the fact that this guy wants to say there's something wrong with this man. He's combative. That's all he. That's all the only thing he really has wrong with him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, I guess perhaps just to roll things back, skosh here. Something to talk about. I love this grounded take on Santa Claus. I love what Edmund Gwynn does here. And by the way, when they're filming this thing, Edmund Gwynn was so convincing of Santa Claus. Everyone in the movie was convinced that he too was Santa Claus. Right? The kid, yes.
I was just laughing.
Oh, sorry. Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Natalie Wood, for example, she actually thought he was the real Santa Claus. As they all were kind of won over, much like in the film. It's utterly delightful. No wonder that man won an Oscar.
Yep.
But I love that this is
Natalie Wood in this movie, one of the all-time most iconic kid actor performances, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I love my favorite thing about this. One of my favorite things about this movie is like how.
I had no idea that was Natalie Wood.
Yep, that's Natalie Wood, all right. Yeah, I love the idea that Santa Claus is he's walking amongst us, no magic, no Santa trappings. Aside from the parade, like outside decorations, we don't see him like really in a sleigh or anything. He's like critiquing the arrangement of reindeer, but they're not really there. So I love that we're taking all the tropes, all the usual trappings off the table, and it's just Santa Claus, and it summarizes the whole point of the movie, which is how the heck are you going to prove this guy's Santa Claus without legit proof or like a legit oh, okay, well there you go, then he's the real guy.
Like, and the movie never explicitly answers it either.
Yeah, which is really clever. And again, it's all about the Christmas spirit and the faith and the belief and everything. It just kind of it exudes that so wonderfully. And I love how we have like the Macy's Christmas parade, and that kind of leads us to the department store, and it just kind of gets wrapped up in that. And there you go. It just kind of falls into place.
It's kind of an interesting take on things to have like the real Santa become a mall Santa, like, and even or someone who thinks he's the real Santa become one.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. Of course, I love that he's outraged by the drunkard Santa Claus in a suit. How else am I supposed to stay warm?
That guy has such a distinct, like, squeaky high voice.
The thing is though, is like, no wonder he's cold. He's drinking alcohol. That makes getting cold even easier.
Right.
I mean, granted, at the time, I think it was believed that it would make you warmer, but in reality, though, it actually like takes blood away from your extremities. It'll make you even colder.
Yeah.
The MythBusters actually proved that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I'm looking off of my own scientific tangent there.
Tiki, do we want to highlight some comments right now? We want to
Yeah, Junebug has a comment. He says, my grandpa, when we watched this film for the first time, he told me that they really got Santa Claus to be in the movie, and it's the only movie he ever starred in.
I was 5.
That's adorable.
Yeah. The Christmas magic hard at work.
Yep. So I mean, speaking of the Christmas magic, I mean, it's such an excellent setup that we see that he's great with kids when he's in that department store. I love I think one of my favorite things I love when we examine like the world building of the Santa Claus and how he operates. And this one kind of hit me in the heartstrings. I kind of forgot how exactly this was done, but I love the idea he directed the parents to where to find the toys that they were looking for with great accuracy. And to me as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I always believed that Santa Claus, he was so clever and he was so behind the scenes. He basically would have a behind the scenes hand in finding the gifts. So ergo, that's why I have all the mall Santas. It's kind of like between that and something like basically the kids and or the parents through some behind the scenes measure being directed to where to get the gifts from. So even if Santa Claus doesn't have to go down every chimney, the gifts are found by proxy of a Santa Claus. He's that good.
Right, exactly.
So it's kind of not saying it's one for one, but it's kind of like in the spirit of what I believed as a kid. So I like that. So yeah, and again, it's just great too. I love the most charming idea in this movie is again how we kind of triumph over the commercialism, which given that's where the film's inspiration came from, it feels rather appropriate. Just the fact that we have Mr. Shellhammer here, who initially I forgot because remember some of these guys are all they're all men in suits. And many times with mustaches, men in suits with mustaches. For a moment, I thought, "Oh no, is Mr. Shellhammer the guy who's going to get the umbrella on the head?" And it's like, "Oh, thank goodness he's not. He's actually a pretty cool guy."
It's like yeah. Once he got the bonus from R.H. Macy, he was like, "Yeah, I'm all for this guy."
Yeah, it's just wonderful. It's the idea of like, oh man, the goodwill between brands. They're showing that we're not greedy money grubbers. This is great. We'll show them, we'll direct them, and we'll get like lifer customers that trust us. And it's like, oh, I'll show them Macy. We'll direct business to them.
It's like Macy and Gimbel in this movie are in like the most freaking like humble and nice competition ever.
I love it though. I love that they're not all completely altruistic, but they are doing something for the common good. And again, Santa Claus made that happen. He made the impossible. He made Gimbel and Macy shake hands. It's amazing.
I mean, just because one's like in consumerism doesn't necessarily mean that they're inherently evil.
Exactly. It doesn't mean they're evil, but it does mean they would not. They would do what Shellhammer was setting out to do. Like, okay, listen, Santa, when the kids are thinking about what they want, direct them to items that we have in the store, which makes sense from a kind of a consumer point of view, but you don't a commercial point of view. But yeah, you don't want that if you want to be a true Santa. You don't want to put an agenda ahead of things. Yeah.
And it is good for him that it actually worked out as well as it did.
Yep.
I mean, it very well could have backfired on
it.
Them.
Could have, oh, for sure, yeah.
But no, like the goodwill towards the holidays and actually directing them, it actually created good PR.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the whole thing with this movie, like criticizing the holidays getting overly commercialized, like I will never that'll never stop getting weird to me. Like, because Charlie Brown Christmas does the same thing, and this is even older than that.
Yeah.
And it's just like it'll never like not hit home where it's like, oh man, like things have only gotten worse since this movie came out. Like substantially worse.
7 times worse, yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, a little. So I love the. So we've kind of spoke commercials. Let's talk about kind of somewhat kind of cynicism, or at least draining magic in the kids here. So I love that we see Susan, Natalie Wood's character, just really getting sold by Santa Claus. You know, like the famous beard tug scene, and like asking the questions and everything.
Oh yeah, like Doris kind of raised her not to believe in fantasy and stuff like that. Which is actually kind of sad for her as a kid.
I mean, when you think about here's the thing, it's so weird with Doris. I think the actress who plays Doris does a great job. The issue I have with the movie, though, the only issue I really have with this movie is that Doris is billed as our main character, either Doris or Fred, but either or. Let's just say Doris because I think that's the intention.
I would say Doris is probably the audience surrogate character.
And it's weird to me because she kind of dips out of the movie for a large chunk of it. When the court case starts, like she kind of, I don't know. It's like to me, it feels like she's kind of away from things for a bit, and I don't know if that. I don't know. I mean, she is at the start, but still, I don't know. She doesn't feel she feels more supporting than she does main to me, at least. But regardless, though, Doris, though, the interesting thing about her, what we do get is that the reason she's kind of like kind of grounding the kids' expectations and being very truthful with her daughter is that her husband clipped her wings before leaving her. He utterly left her, and she had like the perfect life and everything, and then left. And I believe I forget if that's why they're in an apartment right now. But regardless, it very much kind of took a lot of the magic out of things. So that's how she's kind of adjusted her daughter's expectations, which is doing harm to the child, debatably. It's kind of driving her of like her imagination.
I mean, like I said, it does provide a reasonable explanation.
It does.
I mean, ultimately, it is kind of sad to take away whimsy from a child, but it is understandable why Doris would do so. Which Gailey, which Fred even points out, like I thought we were talking about your daughter here.
Yeah. So Fred here, I love, man, on this rewatch. Fred kills it in this movie. He's a kind neighbor. He's a lawyer. He's a straight shooter. This guy.
He's basically like a proto Saul Goodman in some ways with a big heart.
A proto Jimmy McGill.
How he like manipulates the court case.
Very much a proto Jimmy McGill, but yeah. But yeah, he's trying to he's trying to nurse the kid's wonder without really like combating the mother, which is a really classy kind of touch there. And I love that he kind of becomes friends with Kris Kringle, and he's becoming roomies with him, and they're really friendly, and that's really nice. They're very kind of like minded.
And he's like straight honest with his intentions too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and he's gently friendly towards Susie, but he did say that basically the main reason was because he was interested in Doris. So,
yeah.
I mean, at least he's honest about that.
I love that. I gotta tell you, man, this is like a yes.
But he does seem genuinely fond of Susie, though, which is nice.
It is nice. I love this. Is so quaint. This is like a '40s thing. I love they have like Bert and Ernie beds practically, where it's like they go, they go to Fred's place, and like they're rooming with each other, and then like Kris is in the bed, and he asks, "Okay, wait a minute, don't turn out the light. There's something I gotta know. Does Santa Claus sleep with the whiskers under the covers or over the covers? Over. The cold air lets them grow." Yeah. Oh, there's like two decent men. I don't know. Is there something really nice about these two guys striking up a friendship? And of course, when Santa's in a jam, lawyer comes to bail him out.
Yeah. It's always good. It always is nice to have a friend who knows his way of the law.
Yep. Oh, should we talk about the little Dutch girl scene?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most famous scene in the movie.
It's the scene that sells the girl. It's important.
Yeah.
Little Sinterklaas.
It is kind of interesting that they don't actually translate it.
Yeah, it was a good call because we don't need to know what's going on either. Again, we're in the perspective of Susan. She doesn't know.
I also feel like it's probably the most ambiguous, like, magical thing that happens because, it is addressed like, yeah, it's, people know Dutch, that's not like that. But still, it is, if it's not magic, it's a coincidence.
That's more like Santa Claus. He speak. It's like the old adage: Santa Claus speaks all the languages.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean by if it's not the Santa magic, yeah.
It's like one. Like I actually did find a translation. I probably don't. I'm gonna go over the whole thing unless you guys want me to. But actually, one of the thing is like basically she's pointing out like I just want to be with this nice lady, who adopted.
Oh yes, her mother, the adoptive mother angle. Okay, that's nice.
Like one of the things she says, like she's happily adopted with her new mother.
Mm-hmm. I love that Santa Claus chats with the kids. Like he's asking later on when he's talking to Susan, asking her about school and everything. It's really nice.
He's just a genuinely nice guy.
He cares about him. He cares about the kids, which is it's not just like, okay, what do you want? Move on, like kick him down the slide.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah, exactly. The hard truths.
That's exactly what a lot of mall Santas are like. But like they're actually trained to talk like that to a lot of these kids in reality too. Like I watched a lot of like behind the scenes stuff about like mall Santas, and that's actually partly true. Like they have to talk to these kids that way.
Yeah.
And then I mean, obviously, the Christmas story is exaggerated, of course.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, no, I would hope not all Santas would kick the children in the face. I would hope at least most
I
of them.
imagine it's a very similar rule set to playing a character in a Disney park where, you basically have like a script that you have to go by, and if a kid is taking up too much time, it's basically like up to you to kind of like in character sort of like gracefully get out of the situation.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm fuzzy on the details, but a lot of that stuff is pretty much how it goes.
But, so speaking of which, buddy that he makes in the during his time as the department store Santa.
Alfred,
yes. No, not that one. The other Alfred. Yeah, Alfred here. He's he's a chubby Brooklyn. He's a chubby janitor from Brooklyn with bags of the Christmas spirit. He's got charm. Yeah, he's got charm for days, and he really has a lot of.
If he was around these days, I feel like he would be a Disney adult.
Okay.
I mean that with no disrespect. It's just kind of like the way that they characterize him.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's probably the nicest character in the movie besides Chris.
No, he is. Yeah.
I love that he just charms Kris Kringle. The fact of again, this whole movie is really predicated on Santa Claus getting a little disenfranchised, which I believe is the assumed reason why he's walking amongst us. It's like he's trying to get back.
Okay, you know what? I wasn't going to say this at first, but screw it. I honestly think this movie and Violent Night have a weird amount in common when it comes to Santa's actual arc.
That is kind of funny how you mentioned.
Well, only Santa Claus hits someone once instead of many times with a hammer.
No, but I'm talking more about kind of like Santa Claus himself having a crisis of faith.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely a crisis of faith element there, for sure.
I mean, the main difference is a Violent Night is unambiguously Santa, while this one's like it's left up in the air.
But Tiki's on to something in regards of like the beginning of Violent Night. Santa Claus very much be like.
Also, I like how I feel like with both like Violent Night, obviously they're not ambiguous with the fact that he's magical, but that one of my favorite things about that movie is the fact that they really go out of their way to not overly explain the magic.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways.
Yeah, but it's the fact. I think the only distinction, really, in terms of this enfranchisement, is that it's more. It's the kids are in there a little bit because he loves like giving gifts to the kids. But of course, like then where's the next one? Where's the next one? We don't really do that here. It's a little more pure here with the kids. But yeah. So the fact is, Alfred here. Alfred's a really important element in this movie because again, he's kind of building the confidence back in Kris here, and it really breaks his heart when Santa finds out that he's being kind of manipulated or made to feel bad by that quack, by Sawyer. And yeah.
Go on.
I love the scene later where after all this has happened, after he's bonked Sawyer on the head and everything, I love that there's kind of as a scene without dialogue exchange with them, but it makes you feel all warm and fuzzy. They're in the courthouse and they share an elevator, and he says like, hello, Kris, hello, Alfred. And he basically kind of like, he kind of pats him on the back and just kind of like welcomes him. Basically, it's conveying, I feel so bad that I am involved in how you got into this situation. And he's like, saying, no, it's okay. What happened? It's not your fault. But they don't say that. They don't say this. It's communicated in the silence. It's just really nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I think it is pretty damn infuriating. The thing that does make Santa go off, the whole thing with the psychiatrist being like, well, clearly you must be infertile. I mean, he doesn't use those words, but that's basically what he's implying.
Wait, what exactly does he say?
Infantile, which
Oh,
means
infantile.
like,
I thought you said something really different just now, but
It almost sounds
infantile.
like it sounds like said infertile.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, wait a minute.
sorry, I might have slurred there just a little bit, but
Well,
yeah,
no, I asked because in the Mara
infantile.
Wilson version, that scene was a lot. Like, there was a dirtier implication in the John Hughes version of that scene, which makes me wonder: did I miss something?
Oh, motherfucker! Really? Is the implication what I think it is?
Well, that's the read I had on it. That he basically,
Dude, okay, fuck that remake. Seriously, fuck that remake. God damn.
Well, basically, it was the guy trying to get under Santa's skin, though. He's just saying really mean things to him. He's got him to, more like knock him down than even hit him. But yeah,
No, I get that, but like that remake just has such a cynical tone to it that this movie just avoids.
yeah.
Anyways,
The point being, yeah, he calls it infantile and everything. He's making Alfred feel like he hates his father, which is not true, and
can I without getting into personal details, like that kind of psychoanalyzing bullshit, like with no context. I have been through that shit. I have trauma from that shit, and yeah, I hate it.
I mean, again, to me, I love that we already know. You can already sense that Sawyer's a sleazy guy just from the beginning, where we saw him talking to Chris, and Chris didn't. He was very kind. He was very courteous. He's playful. And he just said like, "Yes, I've had." He's just pointing out, "Yeah, it's a little silly you're asking me these questions, but yes, 15, George Washington's first president, yada yada yada." And he's being very compliant, and yet he's like saying, "No." He's telling the doctor, "I love the doctor in this, but the real doctor, Dr. Pierce." That guy, he is, he's a nice doctor that Chris gets the X-ray machine for. Which, by the way, I love the dueling the department store heads here when they're like helping him buy the X-ray machine for Dr.
Right.
He's like, and Gimbel's like, I'll take it on discount. I was like, and then RH Macy was like, I'll get to you on cost. And
that
then
was Gimbel who was on cost.
Like, I got them mixed up. But Santa's like, even Santa couldn't say no to that. Even Chris couldn't say no to that because hey, it was benefiting his friend.
Yeah, which is helping old folks with it.
Like, I mean, sure, it's like the product of consumerism, whatever, but it's helping somebody.
He's directed payment to a worthy cause, though, so it's charitable.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a good tax write-off too.
Yeah, everyone benefits. It's the tide that raises all ships, my friend. So
I know some stuff about how business works.
Yes. So the point is Sawyer there in that scene. He basically is telling Dr. Pierce there, like, and trying to dissuade Doris there by saying like, no, he's come back. He turned the conversation on me. Clearly, he must have a screw loose. Like, really, that's why he has a screw loose, just because he's a funny guy.
Right, exactly.
And of course,
exactly.
they lay it out. They set the kind of the path there. Like, what if he were to hit someone? And you saw the sleaziest thing I call in the rewatch of this. I completely forgot about is that after Santa bonks him on the head, it's not that sort of thing where it's like, oh no, he's hit him, and it's gonna be like the Carl Fredricksen scene from Up.
Yeah, it was not like Up. It was just like he got conked on the head and then pretended to be knocked unconscious.
I know when he pretended to be knocked out, that sleazeball, like, hey, you are not that hurt.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
you got a minor lump.
Yeah, it's not like Up where you actually see blood.
Yeah, it's not an indefensible position. That guy was a sleazy. Plus, Chris was going to tell Macy the whole thing, and that guy sent him up the river.
Mm-hmm.
I want to chuck that guy in the river. Move over, Bailey. We're gonna throw this guy. You're good, Bailey. Go home, be with your family. This guy, not so lucky. Who's gonna miss him? Not his wife.
All right, Dragon, you just retroactively changed It's a Wonderful Life instead of Clarence showing up. That's what happens.
Yes. Clarence then shows up 5 seconds late. Oh, well, I guess I'm not needed here. Let's go back to being blinking angel lights.
Oh, God.
No wings for me. Can someone give me a lift? Anyway. So
no bells ringing there.
Nope. All right. So let's see. So we've trying to see I guess we should get into the big court case then.
Yeah. What I really love about this court case is it does really like as far as the script goes, it really does go out of its way to use Dragon, not just illogical logic, but like logical. How would you describe it? Because it's not illogical
One
logic.
thing I would just call it like just called salient logic, perhaps, or at the very least just logic.
Or like good faith logic, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. It's point being, it's like there's a good flow of logic to this film with the court case, where there's a lot of honestly, it's so funny, Tiki. Of course, now retroactively, there's a lot of Better Call Saul in this looking back, which is even funnier given that they saved Huel using Miracle on 34th Street, so it's kind of cyclical in that sense.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All the letters, of course, is the most iconic part of the court case, obviously.
Everything leading up to it's great, though.
My favorite scene, maybe, in the whole movie is the kid taking the stand.
It's so great.
You wouldn't lie to me, would you, Daddy?
That was an improv, by the way. A part of that was an improv where the kid's on the stand, and he says, basically, his first response, the scene wasn't quite clicking in the dialogue. He says, like, how do you know there's a Santa Claus? Like, my daddy told me. That was the kid.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So I gotta tell you, this just cracks me up. I love, I'm butchering the exact way the exact delivery on this, but I loved when he says, "Well, Your Honor, we have witnesses to call," and I call Thomas Morrow. Thomas Mara says, "Me."
Thomas Morrow Jr.
Exactly. I just love him for me.
Me.
It's over the top, but it's like one of those 40s exemptions. Like, well, it's a little broad, but it's funny.
Well, who's Spinelli going to be staying with over the weekend? Me. All right.
Anyway,
I'm sure Monkey appreciated that reference.
Anyway,
Recess.
Miss Finster.
Yes.
Me.
Me.
Monkey's like obsessed with that like little 2-second clip of Finster saying me.
So speaking, before we get more into the DA, just the judge too, Judge Harper, he's great. So I love that everyone. So basically, again, what I dropped the Better Call Saul reference, not just because of the Miracle before 34th Street reference, but the logic that is applied there. It feels like a mundane court case, and this is like Better Call Saul. This is not a big trial. We never did a real big trial until the very end of Better Call Saul, essentially, without getting into the specifics. And even that was not like a full trial. That was more of a plea thing. But yeah, it was. It's just the fact that here it's like it's not an actual trial. Like no one's. It's literally just like a competency hearing essentially, but it's on a grandiose level. And the fact they wanted to dismiss it because I love Macy is like saying, "Oh, you idiot, you're going to pull this or else you're out in your ear." And of course, it was too late. And they got all this bad press. And because of that bad press,
I love all the spinning articles, including one where everything was written in a K.
Oh my god, yeah.
The whole the crazy.
It's a good thing that there were a bunch of Ks and not just 3 of them, though.
Yeah, really, all the Ks. I loved alliteration.
Bullet dodged.
Yeah.
Crazy Chris Kringle court case. I do love how R.H. Macy even had one. It's like he was imagining, like, do you believe he's Santa Claus? And then the spinning newspaper's like, R.H. Macy admits his Santa is a fraud.
So, by the way, with that scene with Macy on the
that
stand,
almost felt like an early version of like a fucking Family Guy cutaway gag or something.
Well, you know what's great about that scene? It's so perfect because in that moment you have Macy. There's the greed, but then we sweeten it. We sweeten it with the actual like. Okay, well, he wants to lie on the stand there because he thinks about it. Then he essentially lies, but then it's like, "Are you sure?" And then he thinks about it for a moment, like. Well, you know what? He actually does embody what it means to be Santa Claus. So yeah, I do believe he's Santa Claus actually. So that was great. It's kind of got a little bit of the commercialism followed by the sincerity,
Totally.
But speaking of which, I love the fact that all the people involved here, they love this guy, and none of them want to persecute Santa Claus, which essentially the media has turned this into. And you have the poor judge, whose like granddaughter is like ticked off at him, as well as his wife and everyone, and like you have Bill Frawley, Fred Mertz himself.
Right.
Bill Frawley is the campaign manager, basically warning him, "You're going to be the judge who institutionalized Santa Claus." I don't think you want that.
Again, I really think that I would have to go back and actually like watch the remake, but I really think the remake hammers in like, oh man, like people aren't on Santa's side, like like most of the kids believe in Santa, but the adults just think he's a crazy person. Like, I know I really feel like the remake tries to elevate the stakes, and in doing so, it kind of misses the point of the story.
Sounds like it, yeah. So yeah, of course, we have some shenanigans, of course, in which again Bill Frawley just kind of advising the judge. I hope it's an honest judge too, where he's not like just out of fear he's ruling in the Santa's favor. We see he has to listen to the evidence. He's just in such a position right now, but he is giving extra time to hear the other side's points so that he can hopefully like get out of this unscathed.
I mean, he's trying to uphold an actual court case in the best possible way.
Exactly. So everyone's in such a bind. And then, of course, you have the DA, Thomas Mara. And just the genius Saul Goodman level move of putting the son on the stand. I laughed so hard at that. I completely forgot about, oh God, he put the son on.
You wouldn't lie to me, would you, Daddy?
Yeah, again, it's the letters that's the most iconic thing, but I truly think the son is like almost just as impactful in the actual movie.
This isn't necessarily a funny moment, but I also love the moment when Macy straight up fired Sawyer in the middle of the courtroom.
Yeah. It's great. That guy deserved a little worse, but he got it, yeah.
Like, he got fired. I mean,
he got fired, he had a bonk on the head, that's about right.
Yeah, I mean, what more do you need?
Yeah. Maybe some coal in his stocking, but I won't mince words.
Well, I mean, probably a bit worse than coal.
Yeah. We should pull a bit from violent. I don't mean a violent part, I mean like the early part. Anyway. Only his grandson did not get a gift.
All right.
Anyway.
Let's
let's talk about the upstanding nature of the post office in the 40s.
Yep.
Those postal workers, they saved the day big time.
The postal worker apathy saved Christmas.
Yeah. They so I love the kids of New York rallying for Santa Claus with all the papers and everything, and the Susan writing her letter and the mother signing it, and then that postman
endorsing, "I believe you too."
Which how heartwarming is that when she signs that and writes in all cursive and everything? Like, oh,
it was cute.
Yeah, but yeah, so the so the post office coming through and just that. This is like one of the great legalese examples in a movie. I gotta tell you, even if I don't care if it's a loophole or not. It's great. Just the fact of this whole thing of like, well, he is. I think the judge isn't even looking. He's looking for any excuse to rule in the Santa Claus's favor anyway. So it all works out great. Just the fact of like, well, we can see that there is a Santa Claus, but we need to prove that he is indeed Santa Claus. How the heck are you going to do that with a reindeer burst in the courtroom? This isn't Grandma got run over by reindeer after all. So what we do is, well, Your Honor, these are addressed to him and they are brought to this courthouse. Well, I'm going to need a little bit more than that. Of course, they bring in bags and bags and bags. It wasn't the judge said, well, put him here, put him right here, put him on the desk, put him on the bench. And just copious amounts of letters and just flawless logic. Because again, the institution of the post office, a government institution recognizes this man right here as Santa Claus. It's genius.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the smoking gun. It's the Perry Mason moment. There is no disproving that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, and being big. It is kind of amazing that this man was legally declared Santa Claus by the United States government.
Which is awesome.
But again, it really does feel like you get the same satisfaction from this as you do, after Jimmy McGill pulls off a really satisfying long con in the legal world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like the reason for that is because just as far as the actual writing goes, it's very... I don't know. It's very airtight.
And what also helps is the fact it was an act of goodwill sparking another to kind of pull a little Klaus in there,
Mm-hmm.
So also something to mention. I love that earlier in this movie, this. How did you guys feel at the gag where Doris kind of like starts to question his sanity when she looks at the card there and she sees next of kin?
Death Dasher,
all the
Dancer,
reindeer.
Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because it occurs to me on the rewatch that wait a minute, you'd think logically, okay, next of kin Mrs. Claus, but it can't be Mrs. Claus because if there was a Mrs. Claus, that raises too many follow-up questions.
Totally, totally.
So we left her out of the equation. It's one of the classic thing of like, no, it's an unmarried Santa Claus who lives for those freaking reindeer.
Again, I feel like I feel like I would like to see screenwriters these days kind of like go back to under explaining instead of over explaining. I feel like it makes things a lot cleaner.
Well, I know it would have saved myself 6 hours had we done that.
Oh
yeah.
God!
Well, under 6 hours, but you know what I mean.
Like, what are you referring to? The 6 hours?
I know. Okay, I know it's not exactly 6 hours. I meant 6 episodes of something.
Okay.
Of the Santa Clauses, Jacob. Of the Santa Clauses.
All right. You just weren't being very clear on that.
Yeah. Anywho, so what did Susan get for Christmas, boys?
She got the house that she asked for.
Yeah, she wanted a house, and I think the implication is she used to have a house with her father before he left her. So basically, wants to go a little bit back to having a backyard and everything, kind of growing up like a kid.
Which is nice.
It is, and I love that. Again, I love that this Santa Claus is he's engineered things where he hasn't like brought him down chimneys in the conventional senses, where he got the doctor's X-ray machine by like the goodwill of other men. He kind of like he ushered the parents where to get their presents, and of course he kind of set up Doris and Fred together, and then of course the kid showed him the house, and he gave her directions to that house.
So he kind of he did kind of lead them to the house.
Yeah, and of course now Fred here at the end, he's like he loves this woman, and they've kind of got past their little tiff they had earlier, and it's like yeah, happy ending, and like I convinced the court of law that man was saying, that must be a great lawyer, and then of course they look to the corner. Cane, we ain't talking a candy cane, kids. Santa's cane. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I didn't do such a wonderful thing after all. Maybe it was him.
Right.
Maybe I just told people water was wet.
Well,
So the ambiguity, it's wonderful.
Like it could have been the previous people's cane, or it could be Santa's.
Yeah.
It is kind of interesting. Like they made Santa's cane like so nondescript. It could literally be any old wooden cane.
Yeah.
So it's like, is he Santa or is he just a nice old man?
The world may never know.
And the thing is, we don't even need to know.
No, we don't. Well, let's talk about you guys. We're missing like the 4-hour cut of this movie. We should talk about the 2-hour opening of which we have this a random nondescript character saying, "Look at all these streets."
What?
Yeah, from Rick and Morty.
Oh, right.
It was in the season finale of Rick and Morty.
Yeah. Sorry, right.
Which is funnily enough probably the most interesting thing from that episode.
Anyway. But yeah, no, that's the ending. Unless there's something we missed, guys. You think? Any comments we should highlight, Tiki? Any?
Not really.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that about does it. Should we reflect briefly on what we've talked about up to this point?
Well, Jacob and I have been on for different things, so I'm not really sure if that's the best idea.
Well, are we all here?
Yeah. All right. Fine. Go ahead.
All right. So, which one? What are we doing? First one was talking about just like in general for the seasonal shenanigans, like we're just Miracle on 34th Street.
Just going through the list, I think, right?
Yeah. Just what we talked about this year. Yeah, the 6 that we talked about this year. So Guardians. How do we feel about Guardians?
First was Guardians. Like, I really enjoyed Guardians. It's like probably my favorite of the two holiday specials that the MCU put out this year. It was just nice to see the Guardians back again in the heart and the special once they lived up to like the insanity that basically of its namesake. But provide like this kind of like a Christmas adventure you'd expect from the Guardians and all of its heartwarming, hilarious ways, and brought home the bacon.
Yep, brought home the Kevin Bacon. All right, a Violent Night. Very violent, very delightful, I must say.
Yeah, people are really kind of attaching to this movie just because of how straightforward it is. I really I think this movie's kind of like a low-key success story in that way, and kind of like the the mid-tier action movies that we've been kind of missing.
Yeah, brought a little flavor to it.
It is nice to just have again, it's a straight up action movie in the way it is. It's nothing. It's not trying to be any more than what it is. It's like
Uh-huh.
I can respect it. Like it's not trying to be Oscar bait or anything like this. Just like yep, it's Santa going around to saving a house, Die Hard style. Like you don't need to. It basically even exceeds that explanation, but
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah, so Spirited, of course, a highlight, really great. You know, I loved me
Yeah,
some Ryan.
Spirited really surprised me with how good it was, man. I was not expecting much from it.
An unexpected highlight of this year for sure. It's like,
Yeah.
wasn't it? I mean, it's probably like one of Apple's best films so far.
Oh, I agree on that front, yes. And then we had A Christmas Story Christmas, which Tiki and I rather enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, that was another big surprise. Like again, I was not I was very cynical going into it, but seriously, I don't think it's gotten the exposure that it needs to, just because people are so cynical about the idea of a Christmas Story sequel. But this one did it right, folks. Is it a perfect movie? God, no, but it's a really good one.
Yeah, it was better than it had any right to be, as we kind of like to summarize it with. And then let's see, the Snowman.
Snowman Dragon, oh my God, I'm still thinking about it. Just Jesus. It leaves an impression, to be sure, every time you watch it.
Yeah, and then of course Miracle on 34th Street. You folks can kind of summarize how we felt about that. But yeah, I think we had a really solid lineup this year. I think six winners.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And just to sum my thoughts on Guardians, I do think that once again the Guardians of the Galaxy come in to kind of like be the best part of a phase for like the third time in a row. So yeah. The Guardians are kind of like one of the only things I'm actually interested in with the MCU. Not saying I won't check out other things, but just saying they're kind of like at the top of my interest pool right now as far as that franchise goes. Anyways.
I mean, same here, honestly. I mean, I like all the other stuff, but Guardians is
Guardians is the one thing that I'm legitimately like looking forward to, right? Like I'll check out the other stuff, but I'm looking forward to Guardians.
The Guardians, I really clicked with Guardians from the beginning, and this is like one I'm probably going to be like a holiday special I watch every year.
Totally.
Oh yeah. All right, folks. Well, we want to thank. Before we go, we want to thank Junebug Films and Koski Productions
and Theme Park Priest
for stopping on by, and we want to wish you and everyone who's joined us on these seasonal shenanigans a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holiday, and while we're at it, Happy New Year.
And no more presents under the tree.
Unfortunately, they're all unwrapped. But who knows?
It's not even Christmas Eve yet.
Well, there'll be gift cards in the we have stockings. We have stockings. It'll be fine.
But that's not to say we don't have any more surprises left this year.
Oh yeah. All right, folks. Time to dash away all. But as we wave goodbye, don't you cry. We'll be back again next year
for even more seasonal shenanigans. Me.